Day 1 video measures of average and range, and there are actually three ways to measure average. Each of them is an attempt to find the middle of a set of data. Or you could think of the average as a way to identify the most common or most representative element of a set of data. So which one represents the data the most, or which one maybe is kind of in the center or in the middle. So there's maybe half below and half above. Okay, the mean, what you guys are most familiar with. When someone says find the average, you guys most likely think of finding the mean. And that's what most people do actually think of. Finding the mean is when you add up all the values in the data set, add up all the numbers, and you divide that sum, when you add them, by the number of elements in the set. So if I have 10 numbers in the set, I add up all 10 numbers and get some kind of a sum total and divide by 10. The median, it is literally the middle of the data set. So it's the number right in the center. So to find it, list the data in order from least to greatest or greatest to least, and then find the very middle of the set. So you go right to the center of that list of numbers. And lastly, the mode. These are all three different measures of average. The mode is the element in a data set that occurs the most often. It is possible for a data set to have more than one mode, or it could have no mode at all. This example, it says the following data shows the average January temperature for certain U.S. cities, as well as that city's latitude and longitude. Calculate the mean, median, and mode for each of these sets of data. Okay, so we have this column here is the temperature. This is the latitude and this is the longitude. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is look at the average January temperature. To find the mean, we're going to take these numbers here. We're going to add them all together, and then we're going to divide by the number that we have. So there are 19 cities, so we're going to add 44 plus 38 plus 35 plus 31, and so on, all the way down to 27, and divide by 19. And when you do that, for the mean, you should get a mean temperature of 33.37. To find the median, we're going to take this same list of numbers and we're going to put them in order from smallest to largest. Okay, the smallest number is 11, so 11 would be first, and then 15, and then 19, and so on. And so we would put those all in order, and then we would find the exact center of that list of numbers. So for the median of the temperatures, you should get 31. That's the number right in the center. For the mode, if you look, which number occurs the most often? Well, you can see that Mobile, Alabama has an average January temperature of 44, and Jacksonville, Florida does as well. So the mode is 44. All right, now let's look at the next set of data, the latitude. When you add up all the numbers here in the latitude column, all these, and divide by 19, you should get 36 for the mean. When you list them in order and find the one in the center to find the median, you should get 38.1. And when you look at the one that occurs the most often, we have a 40.7 here and a 40.7 here. None of the other ones are repeated, so the mode is 40.7. Then the longitude column. So if I add up all of these numbers, divide by 19, I get 91.19. If I put them in order, find the one in the center, I get 86.9. And then if I look for the one that occurs the most often, it is 92.8. There's one right there and one right there. Okay, so to summarize, here's all the averages that we found. Remember that mean, median, and mode are all three different ways of finding average. Okay, so here are the numbers that we just found. If you look at number one here that I've kind of written out, there are a few claims that we could make based on this information that we found. And you could actually write more sentences than this. But if you look at A, it says we could say in the US the average January temperature is 33 degrees. B, in the US the average January temperature is 31 degrees. Or C, in the US the average January temperature is 44 degrees. There's some questions to think about that we're going to talk about next time. Which of these statements is the most accurate, and how do you know? Also, if you were a company that made winter coats, which measure of average would you use in a commercial about your product? And are any of these should be averages, dishonest? And why? So think about those. Okay, secondly, we want to talk about range. We talked about measures of average, mean, median, and mode. Now we're going to talk about range. The range of a set of data is the difference between the highest and lowest value in the data set. Okay, range is not a measure of average, it's a measure of variance, or how much the data changes in the set itself. So let's find the range of each set of data in the example we looked at earlier. All right, what is the range of temperatures that we see in this January temperature list? All right, well, the highest is 68, and that would be, if I can find it, look at the previous one. The highest temperature was 68. So, and then the lowest is 11. So the range, 54. And then the range of latitude, look at that. The lowest or the highest latitude value is 41.8, and that's here. And the lowest latitude value is 25.0, and that's here. And so the range, if I take 41.8 minus 25, I get 16.8. And in the range of longitude, the highest is 123. The lowest is 73.4, so I get 49.6 as the range there. So the range gives me a measure of how much the data varies, how much it changes. All right, so from the highest to lowest is a measure of range. So to summarize these, we have our chart here. I've added the range row at the bottom. So what does the range tell us about the January temperature? Well, it looks like this number 54 would tell us that in January, the average temperature has a range, or it varies as much as 54 degrees from city to city. So the coldest average temperature is about 54 degrees colder than the warmest average January temperature. So here's what I want you to do to add to your notes. Write at least 3 different statements based on the chart above, what we calculated for averages and range, about the average January temperature and the average latitude and longitude of the city. Write the statements in such a way that each one contradicts at least one of the other two. So you have 3 total sentences, and I want you to take this information into account, especially these averages that we found. And I want at least each sentence that you write, I want it to contradict at least one of the other ones. It could contradict them both.